Panel number one is about the use of models and tools. And the goal of this session for the next 45 minutes or so, depending on your participation, is to get a perspective from different organizations about the use case, but also we would like to achieve some feedback from the panelists, but also from the public around the future use of these tools and models. So let me first introduce our panelists today in not a specific order, but in the order I was giving in my paper. We have Amaryllis Moyanou, who is close. I will work the whole afternoon on your pronunciation. She's a risk modeler from Axis Capital, which is a reinsurance company. We have also Surya Shrestha. He's from the National Society for Earthquake Technology in Nepal, over here. We have Anita Florczyk, is that right? Yes. Okay, she's from the Joint Research Center, European Commission Science and Knowledge Service. We have Daniela Di Bucci, perfect, from the Civil Protection in Italy. And last but not least, we have Rolando Castillo from Universidad de Costa Rica. So welcome everyone on this panel. So I will put myself here. So the first round of questions is about use case, and I will first ask the people here, and I will start with you, Amaryllis. And the question is about how will you or do you use GEM models for insurance risk modeling applications?
Hello. Actually...
One thing,
yes.
Only 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Not more.
That's fine. So I would like to just say that the uses of the GEM products have been varying among the industry. Of course, everyone in the industry is interested to see the products, to get a feeling of what are they about, and that's why many of the people representing the industry are here today. But if I would I could say is that some of the companies that are bigger and that have been involved to the GEM, with the GEM Foundation for a while now, they have been more advanced in the use of the products. So they have already been using models, implementing them in their own systems and using the results, the outcome that we're presented today. Some other companies that maybe are lagging a bit behind because they are smaller, they have less resources, but they're definitely interested to have the use in the future. So the use, as I see it, is that in the industry we use catastrophe models that are coming from commercial vendors or developed in-house within the companies. And I see that GEM products are already gaining a position as an independent view, as a point to compare with what we're using, a checkpoint, and much more. So we're getting there.
Thank you. So the question for Surya is about how do you use or will use GEM data and tools in the national interest in Nepal?
Thank you, Claudio. Thanks to GEM for this opportunity here. We have been using the risk assessment scenarios, hazard scenarios in different ways, and not just GEM products, but we have been using similar system like long before during the ID-NDR decade. They had this radius, risk assessment system radius, and we have been using all these risk assessment results basically 3-4 ways. First of all, we have been using these models and systems and products for raising awareness among the population. We find these risk assessment results are very useful to show people the amount of risk that we have and also motivate them towards risk reduction. First of all, we have been using this as a awareness tool, great awareness tool. And the second, we have been using this as a planning tool with the municipalities. We have worked with several municipalities, and then with municipalities, we show where are the areas, which are the areas where there is high risk. And together with the municipalities, we have been working to plan for risk reduction and to plan for the preparedness works. With national agencies also, we have been using this tool for, again, awareness raising and also for planning. So more specifically related to the GEM product, we have been using this, we have used this in 2 occasions. Recently, we worked with UN OCHA for developing a risk scenario, which was used for the national level simulation exercise. And also recently, the group who are doing the building code updating process, they have also used OpenQuake platform for using the hazard calculations for Nepal. So we have been using it in multiple fronts, and we find it very useful and very interesting.
Thank you, Surya. So, Aneta, the question to you or for you is how GRC is monitoring hazards and exposures, and what is your approach to risk assessment?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, for coming here. It's the honor to be here. Maybe as just introduction to say that we follow very closely the all work that is here happening in GEM, and in the past we collaborated already in JET for GEM also. In our work for European Commission, we use frequently GEM models and data, not only for, mainly for the experiments and small test cases, because the Research Institute, of course, is full of people who want to try new things and to see what's going on. But in general, in our approach in GRC, we have a view that in all models, not only in the risk assessment, we try to have a baseline information data sets that can be used in all levels of the modeling as input data. And that's why we try to have global, consistent data sets. Of course, in the case of risk hazard map, it's not so easy. As we know, till now we were using GSharp for a long time. Now with the new GEM hazard map, for us will be a very, very good data set to use as well. And also we hope for usage of the additional data sets. And yeah, that's the most important for us to take advantage of this new data and models release. Thank you.
Can I use the microphone? Thank you. Thank you, Aneta. So, Daniela, the question to you is how you will or do use GEM risk models or data for civil protection, preparation, response, risk reduction?
Thank you, Claudio. Thank you, GEM, for the opportunity, also from my side. I have to introduce how civil protection works in Italy, because in our country, civil protection is not an administration, but it's rather a function that is carried out by several components who form the National Service of Civil Protection. And these components are coordinated by my department, that is the National Department of Civil Protection. And also the scientific community is part of this service, and we have what we call the competence centers. We have some research institutes, universities, and so on, who are near us, who work with us in developing research and applied research that can be useful for civil protection purposes. And they are involved with us in all the risk cycles, so prevention, preparedness, emergency, and emergency overcoming. And coming to the use of GEM products, there is one of our research centers, one of the competence centers, that is the Seismic Hazard Center by NGV, who is working on the National Seismic Hazard Model for Italy. And they are working with 160 scientists on this model, and they are using OpenQuake. And moreover, I would like to underline that they do not only use OpenQuake, but there is a collaboration with the GEM staff. One member of the GEM staff is part of the coordinating table of this wide research group. So just to say that GEM is not represented only by its databases, its products, its engines, but also with a high-level staff, which represent an added value for GEM. Coming toward the risk assessment, we are also working on the national risk assessment risk model for Italy. And in this case, there are two competence centers, the LUIS and the EU Center, who is located here in Pavia, who are working on this. And EU Center has a platform, an IT platform, where that is called the Italian Risk Maps IRMA, which uses OpenQuake as well. So we are working also on seismic risk with the support of GEM. And just to conclude, all these products for us are important, not only at national level, but also at the European level, because we are working on the national risk assessment for the European Commission, and so all of these contribute to this product.
Thank you, Daniela. Everyone is in time. Last but not least, Rolando, the question to you is how do you foresee that you will use James' work for improving the building code in Costa Rica? And I have a second question for you as well. How do you use the tools and information at the University of Costa Rica?
Thank you for the opportunity. I have some notes here that I'm going to read. First of all, I would like to bring out what John Snyder mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, where he said that the main purpose of GEM at the beginning was to work on the risk assessment framework, where it includes collaboration, common methodology and tools, open and transparent and maintainable. The maps are useful, very useful. The models have been very useful and we're using them. But I believe that the value that is brought by GEM through that framework is what makes this thing very useful. As you already know, on March 2018, GEM completed an 18-month project known as the Caribbean and Central America Earthquake Risk Assessment, supported by USAID. The aim was to calculate the seismic hazard and risk of the region with the available information provided by representatives of all participating countries. So we have all this knowledge, but we need data. And if we don't get the data, we're not able to do the work. The project was not an easy task. It demanded a lot of knowledge, people with knowledge about what is needed. That's when GEMS comes in and brings all this knowledge. But the data is important. The development of the project helped us understand all the work that is needed to generate the maps, the hazard and risk model. We learned that it's a multidisciplinary job and that is undertaken by geologists, seismologists, and civil engineers, that we need to work together. And this is something that it has been hard for us in Costa Rica to do. Because of this, in June 2008, 2 months after the project was finished, a permanent research group on seismic hazard was created at the University of Costa Rica to develop capacity in order to update and improve the existing seismic hazard maps and models that were developed, starting with the model developed by GEM. We want to ensure that this initiative will be permanent, and to do that, we have formally um, um, s- registered this project at the university, at the higher level of the university. For this purpose, this approach will ensure that the group can apply for funding and that and researchers can assign work hours to it. Probably it sounds a little bit like that's what everyone does, but in Costa Rica it has been a little bit difficult. I think this is a milestone for us, and we hope that with the help of GEM, we will be able to develop this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rolando. So, Ian, how are we with time? Thank you. Are we good? Maybe I would like to ask the same question to any one of you who would like to share with everyone any use case. Anyone who would like to volunteer? Okay. So, 5-10 minutes? Okay, so the final question is about now the future. I would like to expand the question to every one of you, and we would appreciate your feedback. And this has to do with what do we need to develop further in terms of tools and models and maps to address any specific requirement from a technical perspective. So this question is for everyone, for the panelists, but also for you here in this very beautiful place. Anyone who would like to start? Come on. Otherwise, there is no lunch. Silence. Shall I walk down and ask you the question specifically? Any ideas? Don't be shy. John?
Okay, not on a technical side specifically, but I think one of the things I think we need to perhaps do more of, make sure that the world sees what GEM is about, is really to look at some of the communication and getting people to use the tools, the technical approaches we've developed in a much larger scale than we have previously. My feeling is that GEM has done some really fantastic work. We've got some amazing products that we've seen today. We've got them underpinned by this fantastic framework, and I think the main thing we've really got to concentrate on now is getting much bigger usage of that by the global community. So, this is an enormous resource, and I feel that we can have much better visibility of it.
Thank you, John. Another volunteer? Very good.
One of the core principles of GEM as an organization is the common good. And I wonder if you could comment on how you define common good and where you have seen perhaps broad impact in that respect.
Anyone from the panel?
About common good. Oh, thank you, sir. About common good, I think that common good is something that we have to contribute to build, because the added value, the sum is higher than the value of the single components. So this is for me a common, and this is what we consider this, because if you could try to take advantage without giving, we will make this common good poor and of lower level. So I think that all of us should contribute to have something that is important for all of us.
Thank you, Daniela. Any other perspective? No? Okay. John?
common good. One of the things that we have been tracking over time is the number of users of the OpenQuake platform, the accesses. Now, Mauro actually said, if you remember, he said 20,000 accesses. The slide said 117,000. That's because between the time we actually made that map and about 6 months ago, and the time we I gave the information to Mauro, the number of accesses went up by 100,000. Those are unique accesses. So this I would call as a common good. We don't ask people to do anything to access that information. We don't even ask why or what they're using it for. We simply make it available. Sometimes it comes back to us. People ask questions. We get all kinds of questions about how we might make improvements. And we think this is obviously a growing resource, and we hope that everybody spreads the word about using it more and giving us feedback. So thank you for that.
Thank you, John.
I'm Robert Muirwood from RMS. I have one question. From a commercial risk modeling perspective, one feature which makes our life simple is that we have a client. We have a client at the end of the process who has specific needs and demands in what they're looking for a model to do. And I'm curious, I mean, does GEM have a client, or are there a range of clients you would say that GEM is being built for, and who are they, and what do they want a model to be?
Do you want to answer, John? The clients?
Well, I believe that as clients, we want it to be user-friendly, OpenQuake. We talk at some stage, we were talking about making a user-friendly interface. Probably researchers are not worried about introducing the data, but in order to cover a broad other people, we need to, the feedback we're getting is that we need to make it user-friendly. So that's one point. And the other point is we need to improve what is the training with using all these tools, the OpenQuake, the models, the data that is being gathered, all the information that is available. We need to gather as much information as we go. As we talked before, that this is a static study. We did a study. It ends up with the information we got today, but we need to improve. We need to go further. That's why we at the university, we have created this group in order to continue the legacy that GEM has created with this Central American project. And we want here in Costa Rica to develop even further this project.
Thank you. Does it answer your question?
I also have a comment, if I can add.
Sorry.
The question was more if GEM has clients. I think everyone has an interest and receives good products and good outcome from GEM. The way GEM works, from my experience, is more like collaborating with everyone that stands there at the client seat. It's not a commercially defined client-provider relationship. It's more like a collaboration. It's working together. It's setting up relationships. It's more like long-term and a lot different than demanding a service, providing a service, end of the day. So I think that everyone that wants to be close to GEM, it's better to be part of the GEM family and continue long-term to be part of the long-term process and all the evolution that hopefully we will see.
Before you comment, Annette, my 2 cents. I believe that the users or the customers of GEM are the people of this world, those who are exposed to earthquakes. These are the end consumers of what we are doing here. And there are people who have the knowledge. These are the scientists. These are all these organizations who are working together here in this community called Global Earthquake Model, trying to raise awareness about this exposure and try to reduce the risk. But the end result is for the people of this world. That's my personal view. Anit.
Yes, I would like to comment also on that, on client, because we are an example of client, of course. And or just to mention that thanks to the collaboration and especially with contact with Marco Pagani, we incorporated the results from exactly this recent map to our recent work, which is on the urban center database, which one of the attributes is the classification according to MMI class that is derived from the hazard map. I would like to also add that, okay, on one hand, it's important the collaboration, and we will not avoid to be in contact with the people. However, to our models, where we are using, as I was saying, at the global level, not only on European, pan-European applications, we would need something, and this refers to the future of the GEM, something that is service-based, which is machine-to-machine, let's say, interaction, that in this way it will be easier for us to incorporate the data and the results from the models to our models, because our approach is a bit different for the modeling, and rather to use the hazard maps, we stay, let's say, low level. We use the exposures, and our understanding, we have two, let's say, two dimensions of exposure, which are people, and then built-up area, which is not exactly the same as understand here by number of the buildings, but rather the surface of the total surface of the buildings, but at scale of 1 kilometer. So for us, would be of much interest to be able to have more refined data for our purpose, and also a machine-to-machine interaction with the GEM platform. And on the other hand, there is another project that it's using the hazard on the seismic risk, which is the INFORM, where the component on the natural hazards is using a probabilistic hazard map with different return periods. So I think this could be also additional aspect that might be considered. As for vulnerability, to be honest, we would be very happy to have access to the structural classification of the buildings that we could incorporate to our refined built-up area grid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You wanted?
Yes, thank you. My name is Kate Stillwell. I'm from Jumpstart, and I have been involved in GEM from the internal side, from the Secretariat, and now from the outside. And I want to, first of all, I'm very inspired by all of the different use cases and all of the ways that GEM is being used in the world. It's very gratifying, and it's a testament to the good work that's been done. And my question to the panelists is, piggybacking off Rolando's comment, that GEM is about the data and the models, but although those are necessary, they're not sufficient without the collaboration framework, which at the beginning, we didn't necessarily realize was the collaboration framework is the lasting asset of GEM. And so all of the panelists have to think about perils other than earthquake. So my question is, to what extent does the GEM framework, is it extensible for your uses for other perils beyond earthquake?
Yes, go ahead.
Not on this question on other perils, but on the question of future use, whatever we have been doing is basically for the purpose of helping the risk reduction, if I understand correctly. So, entire risk assessment is geared towards helping the risk reduction, be it in developed countries or be it in developing countries. And for risk reduction, actually, we have to work with the local people, local populations, and local municipalities where actually infrastructures and buildings are being built. So for them to understand the process easily, I think a simplification of the tools is required. And I remember the RADIUS tool, the risk assessment tool developed by UN IDNDR during 1990s. That was a very simple tool, use of very simple computer softwares. So that helped us to make municipal people understand what is the underlying process of risk reduction. I mean, in the morning there was a question related to see if we change the building attributes, the building vulnerabilities, then we see the change in the risk. So using RADIUS in the past, what we used with some of the municipalities is existing risk is there, but when we change the building practice for another 5 years, we could very easily show municipal people the risk can be reduced significantly. And that motivated the municipal people to work towards risk reduction. So my point is a lot of work needs to be done perhaps to simplify the tools, models, so as to be used by the municipal people and the users at the grassroots. That's one point I have. The second is a lot of things, maybe from our perspective, from the people who are working in the grassroots, example, myself. From our perspective, we need to do a lot on communications. I have an example of the risk assessment results from the scientific point of view is very difficult to be understood by the communities. But if that risk assessment results, I mean, most of the time we talk about this much probability of risk in this area, or this building has got this much probability of being collapsed or something like that. But that's very difficult to be understood by the people. But if we talk, whenever there is an earthquake, your city will be out of water supply for 6 months. They say people will understand it very well. So people like us, we need to work at the community level in communicating this in the right language, appropriate language for the communities. So maybe Jem also can think of simplifying the results to communicate in a very simple language, particularly focusing on the decision makers of the countries. Scientific communities can very well understand the tools, but decision makers in the countries, they find difficulty in understanding the results and models and tools. So simplification of these and communicating in right language is something which is perhaps useful in the future.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. So, do we have more?
Sorry, the answer, the question of the other perils was not answered. So
Go ahead.
Does anyone want to have a comment? I can say a comment. First of all, by listening to all the future goals of the other panelists, I must say that this is only the beginning, and there is so much that people want to do in each different sector, and that's interesting and very, we're hopeful for the future. But the other perils, I think that the framework, it is the first time that this global approach was done, and it worked, as you said, very well, and it's amazing to look back and see what is achieved. I think from the insurance sector that I'm representing, or like the private sector, is of course something we would like to see. We would like to see models for every peril and have a common basis and have something to discuss. So we are representing something private, but if we have something publicly available, maybe we can discuss about it, maybe we can improve everything in the process. What I think is that there's still so much work need to be done on the projects that are already ongoing, and definitely there are necessary more resources in order to start with all the other perils. One of the success components is that all these experts and all these scientists were gathered and started working together. So this needs to be reinitiated with all the other perils. I think it's worth a while, but it's worth to have this initiation, but I see that it will take time and a lot of effort and resources, and hopefully everyone can sponsor and be part of this work.
Thank you. Daniela?
Just to add a comment on the collaboration and from some ideas about the future. In general, when I consider collaboration, I think not only I work in a decision-making organization, so my perspective is not directly scientific, but it's operational. But I think that collaboration can be promoted also, acknowledging that GEM is a valuable system in its complex, and to suggest the use of it. And this is what happened to me. I'm in the advisory board of a project of that is promoted by European Commission that is called Aristotle for rapid response and early warning. And we promoted the collaboration of GEM with this group. So this is a way to collaborate, to create a framework. And about the future, from the decision-making point of view, in Italy, for instance, we are working toward a national strategy of disaster risk reduction following the Sendai framework. And so we are working toward, we're going toward a multi-hazard risk approach. And these words are in the new statute of GEM, so we consider this very important, and we suggest to do this, to work in this direction. We know very well that's quite difficult. There are some risks that are, let's say, easier. For instance, tsunamis generated by earthquakes and earthquakes themselves, also because they follow a probabilistic approach, and so the problem may be perhaps the vulnerability, how to compose the vulnerability to tsunamis with respect to the vulnerability to earthquakes. Some experience has been done with floods. For instance, the Razor project who combined floods and earthquakes. So I think that this is the way. And I would like to add just a final point. GEM was one of the first attempts to introduce a social vulnerability. There's a lot of research going on this at European level. For instance, there are a lot of projects working on this. So I suggest to continue to work on this aspect. That's very important for us.
Thank you, Daniela. Any other comment from the panel? No? You have one? Yeah, go ahead.
It's a rather light comment, so.
No problem.
Okay. It's regarding the communication and the maps where we had some discussion today. And I think that we're almost in 2020 and maps are great, but we all use screens. So we would really like to see GEM maps interactive in screens with slideshow that changes every week, every day, every hour.
Every minute. Thank you. No, yeah? And then we have to close.
Other hazards, of course, yeah, we expect something like GEM OpenQuake tools. If we have other hazards, tools for other hazards, that will be fantastic. I mean, working at the grassroots, for example, in Nepal, we cannot always talk about earthquakes if we have other frequent hazards like landslides and floods. So we have to have similar tools, similar systems in other hazards, and I don't know whether we can expect from GEM or not, but need is there, tremendous need is there. That's one point. And second point is, I suppose this socioeconomic vulnerability, socioeconomic or integrated risk, one of the priorities of GEM, and we expect further more defined methodology for knowing the socioeconomic vulnerability and risk is another need in the countries like us.
Thank you. So, okay, we can conclude. There is a lot to be done. So, team in Pavia, something is coming on your desk. I would like to conclude this first panel, and I would like to thank the panelists over here and also for your input. Thank you.